Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I am Siddharth Zarabi, and with me here at the Business Today studio at Goafest is Edward Pank, the Managing Director of WARC Asia Pacific. Thank you very much for joining us here. The Business Today multiverse, and a multiverse where the consumer, global consumer, Indian consumer resides in today. My first question to you is to do with the slowdown that we are seeing across the globe, at a tipping point, perhaps a recession in certain economies, some of them already there. What's really happening as far as the economy and the world of advertising and creativity is concerned?
Yeah, so there's a lot of recessionary pressures around the world, also in this market. And what that does, it has an impact on budgets. Yes, if we're leaning into creativity and wanting to develop more creative work, we've got to actually prove that it works. And that's about coming up with decent measurement frameworks to be able to understand, okay, as part of my campaign, the long-term aspect of my campaign, what impact is that having on the brand and what impact does that have on future sales? And then equally, a measurement framework that's be able to measure the short-term activation results of the campaign as well. So it's making sure that you can prove that creativity can work, and that's how you can justify the budget, and that's how you can argue for more budget. And actually, a recession, we would say, is a great opportunity for brands to stand out, because competition, everyone's probably cutting back. They're probably spending less. Media is actually a bit cheaper, so it's a great actually time to advertise and to stand out and get noticed and build those critical emotional bonds with consumers.
Ed, even if there are entities and brands who decide to make an opportunity out of a slowdown, one of the questions perhaps that must be asked of you is on the science of measurement. How accurate is your measurement? There are two different worlds, the digital world and its tools, and the traditional world and the lack of certain tools for measurement. How is the science of measurement able to help clients in today's time? If you can talk about any innovations and advances in that regard as well.
Yeah, so generally speaking, the advances of digital makes it a lot easier to measure last mile activation, bottom of the funnel approaches, and that's kind of digital attribution. But the trouble with that is it neglects the kind of bigger brand piece, and it's very important for brands to invest in their marketing over the long term, so that they're not only meeting existing demand, but actually creating future demand by tapping into the minds of consumers in the future when they're in the market for a particular product or service, whenever that might be in 6 months' time. So everyone gets sucked and seduced by digital because it's very easy to measure it. But the temptation is to neglect the bigger brand piece and understand what that brand uplift can actually mean and attribute it back to commercial returns. And that becomes more complex. So it's about setting up measurement frameworks that can measure both your short-term activation and also your long-term brand building. And to do it really well, brands are leaning into MMM, market mix modeling. It costs a lot of money. It is quite complex, but that's when you can really understand, okay, so which channels are actually driving the performance of your business, and more marketers are leaning into that.
Talk a bit more about market mix modeling. What really is it?
Market mix modeling is just really understand where you're spending and what impact that's having on your performance. And it's a very kind of complex piece of business. Understanding you have a consultant that come into the business to understand where the sales is coming from, and it's being able to link that back to the spend that you're actually putting into different channels.
Okay. You spoke about brand versus digital. Did I understand you right, where you were saying that as far as brand impact is concerned, perhaps television or print is still a better alternative to digital? Digital does last mile activation, as I understood from you. Is that the right way to?
No, it's not necessarily the case, actually. So the advancements of kind of new platforms like TikTok, which I know is not available in India, only available on a VPN, but that's an example of social commerce. So using entertainment, and we've just recently written a white paper for TikTok on entertainment as a strategy, and why that's can help brands be more effective. Why? Because you create content to engage audiences, new audiences, extend your consumer franchise at the top of the funnel, and then you can bring them down the funnel very quickly into conversion. So that's what we call a through funnel opportunity. And digital platforms like TikTok or other social media players are very good for that. So it's not necessarily about traditional is good for brand building and digital is good for last mile activation. It's just about how you leverage these channels in different ways.
What's the importance of creativity and innovation in business today?
So the important thing about creativity is it helps a business and a brand stand out. It's coming up with original ideas that actually can advance a business. But the question today is, how do you define creativity in a way that's right for 2023? And many people would define creativity as a way to benefit brands and businesses. But actually, it makes much better sense to think about your end consumer, your audience, real people. And the last 3 years of the pandemic have taught us that actually we've lived in quite a sort of topsy-turvy world where actually we care about the things that we care about more than ever, our friends, our families and communities. And as consumers, that's really important. So brands can lean into that, businesses can lean into that and come up with creative solutions that actually deliver real value through experiences to their audiences. And that's a key difference.
What about the Indian market? What are your insights into the Indian market? Because you work across so many geographies. Random thoughts here really to start this.
Well, I think India has been building brands successfully for many, many years, and it's probably one of the most advanced markets in Asia Pacific. They're very good on strategy, developing some really effective campaigns, and also in terms of creativity, India is on the rise. And the success of Cannes Lion last year, where India won 47 Lions medals, was phenomenal and put India really on the world stage for creativity, which is massively exciting. And in our rankings, the WARC creative rankings, India is now 7th place, and it was 22 a year ago. So,
wow. Really? And what led that significant rise from 22 to 7 in the rankings?
I think it's about leaning into great talent and nurturing great talent and being a champion for great ideas. I think there's some great agencies, some great people, and it's just a question of maturity, and India is coming of age. It really is, and a force to be reckoned with when it comes to creative work.
Some people in your fraternity, in the broader advertising media fraternity, say that in India you got to be really Indian. You have to localize, and if I can say it, a soft drink overseas perhaps tastes less sweeter than in India because the Indian consumer consumes far more sugar. In the overall advertising space, how significant do you see a localization effect in India play out?
I think it depends on the situation and the category, but there will be lots of examples of being able to localize and give part of a campaign an Indian flavor. And I gave an example in the presentation that I gave earlier. So I was talking about sound. Sound is a really underutilized brand mnemonic, what we call a distinctive asset. It's a very effective way, has a multiplier effect of about 8.5 times over other assets in terms of
8.5 times?
in terms of achieving brand recall, but it's really underutilized. And I gave an example of MasterCard, who has this global brand anthem, and I gave an example of how that's been localized in India with Indian instrumentation and all the rest of it. And I also gave the other example of how it's been localized in Colombia.
Okay.
So yeah, that's an example of just being able to find the right level of kind of local nuance and bring it in. But I think yes, India is a very different market, and I shouldn't call it a market really. I shouldn't really call it a country. It's a region with many different languages and many different cultures and all the rest of it. But actually, underpinning many of these communities are universal human insights in terms of how people care about their families and what's important for them, providing protection, whatever it might be. So actually, we can focus on the differences, but we can also focus on the commonalities. And we lean into this a lot at WARC, looking at how global brands can localize their campaigns. And it's about providing the right balance and the right level of localization to bring that to life, so to make sure that it's culturally relevant. You look at a lot of brands like McDonald's. They actually have a very local flavor. Maybe that's not a good example to use in the Indian market, but they have a very.
But it is. They have products which are available only in India.
Yeah, exactly. And in Australia they're called Maccas. You know, it has its own nickname.
Yeah.
In the UK, Mackie D's. So they have a real local flavour, and they do that by tapping into local insight, but they still do so with consistent global strategies. So it's just all about how you localise and how you adapt at a local level, and it's definitely possible to get that glocal approach, we call it.
Final question for Indian brands that are aspiring to sort of go overseas, and many of them have. What's the right way to achieve global recognition? Obviously, there has to be a business case of it. You will go where your customer is, and that's where you will want to do brand development. But is there like a sort of generic formula that you can talk about what it means for what it would mean for an Indian brand to go global?
I don't think there is a generic formula, to be honest with you. I think it's just about understanding the machinations of a category, and then understanding the markets that you're going to move into, making sure that you're consistent with what your brand stands for, and making sure you've got a consistent brand narrative, that then you can bring that to life in a way that's locally relevant, like we were talking before. So I think it comes down to some key fundamentals, making sure that you've got a strong brand narrative that can play out in different touch points, and then you can localize that and adapt it as you move into new markets, whether that's Southeast Asia or the Middle East or Western markets, whatever that might be. So I don't think there's a generic formula, but I think it's applying the fundamental principles of good marketing, which is insight, coming up with a compelling idea and bringing that to life in a right way, and the right channel mix for that particular market and what your particular objectives are.
Absolutely. And Ed, I think it's something that will take years for people to master, and I know your insights and the work that your firm does must definitely be helping a lot of companies in this regard. Thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very nice to.
With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. If you've been, thank you very much for watching.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.